Hey guys, it's Fish in the PNW here. I'm sitting in my car in a parking lot and decided that I would finally get around to making this video explaining what happened to me last month. I wanted to make this a lot sooner, but unfortunately the lighting in my rental house is absolutely crap, and no matter how many lamps I tried to use, it just looked like absolute garbage. So yeah, I'm about to go short fishing at this spot, but I figured I'd take a minute to talk about this. Some of you may or may not have seen my post that I made here on YouTube. It was just a photo of me in the hospital, and basically on the 2nd of March last month, I nearly died. Like, literally came so close to dying that it's not even funny. I suffered a heart attack at 40 years old, which I never thought would happen to me. Um, might be a little bit overweight, but relatively quite healthy. And it. I wish I could say it was super sudden, but it wasn't, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to make this video, is so that I might be able to bring awareness and help somebody else who might see this video. But basically what happened was approximately a week, maybe a little bit longer, but a week prior to the actual heart attack, I started noticing that little amounts of physical activity that never bothered me before would give me just like a little bit of pain in my chest. And I didn't know what it was. I didn't know if I was starting to develop acid reflux or having like heartburn issues or something like that. But it was like a minor burning in the chest, and it would subside pretty quickly. And then over the course of about a week, it started to get a little bit worse at a time. And then it progressively got a little bit more worse. And I started to wonder, like, all I'm doing is walking up the stairs. Why is my chest starting to burn as if I was like running in PE in high school again? And then I would sit down, and then after like 30 seconds or a minute or so, it'd just go away. So I thought it was weird. I didn't know if I was developing like adult asthma or something, and I should have looked into it. But you know, um, I suffer from a lot of anxiety, and I think that played a role in me not wanting to exactly find out right away what was going on. But on March 1st, the evening of March 1st, I went out roughly 9 o'clock, went out to get some dinner, was feeling exhausted that day and didn't want to cook. And after dinner, bought some groceries and came home. And what was bothering me is the whole time I was out, just like walking around the grocery store, I had this burning in my chest. And when I was Googling the symptoms, it's simply having burning in your chest doesn't exactly tell you it's a heart attack. It could be a lot of things. So, I was kind of freaking out. I was like, maybe I need to take something for acid. Maybe I need to, I don't know, figure something else out. But I got home and was sitting on the couch just watching a movie, and the pain just kept getting worse and worse. And prior to that, if I wasn't like moving, like if I was just sitting down, that's when it would go away. But after like a whole movie, like it wasn't going away, and it was just kind of getting worse. So then my roommate and I started Googling symptoms of, how do you know you're having a heart attack? And one of the main signs is that if the pain spreads from your chest to your back and or your arms or like your chin, your throat area, then that could signify that, you're definitely having a heart attack. And roughly around like 1 a.m., that evening, so this is now March 2nd, it spread to my back, it spread to my arms, it spread to my chin, and the pain was absolutely insanely intense. So at that point, I was like, crap, I need to go to the ER, like right away. And I was hesitant to go to the ER because I've been unemployed for about half of last year, and I'm still unemployed, and I don't have health insurance. So, the thought of having a hospital bill that was over 100 grand was absolutely terrifying, and I didn't want to go. But ultimately I had to end up going, and my roommate helped me to sign up for state insurance at the time. So that was happening while she drove me to the ER. And then I get admitted to the ER, and the first doctor who saw me, like, I don't think he has a clue what he's doing, because after they did an EKG on me, and they took they took blood samples to run my blood work, and the results came back. He was pretty much like, yeah, he's like, I highly doubt you're having a heart attack. And he didn't even start to treat me for anything. So I was just kind of waiting in the ER room for a while. And then after the shift changed, the next doctor that came in took a look at the exact same information that the other doctor had, and was like basically freaking out because the other doctor didn't do anything for me. And I should have been, put on medications immediately, because it was extremely clear that I was having a heart attack based on, the results of my blood work and the elevated levels of, I don't know exactly what they were, but basically, like, the proof was right there that I was having a heart attack. And the other doctor just brushed me off like I was just having like minor chest pain, nothing serious was going on. And he immediately had the nurses put 2 IVs, one in both arm, and he put me on an IV drip of a blood thinner. And then in the other arm is where this is several hours later, by the way, and in the other arm is where they started finally giving me medicine for the pain. I can't even explain to you how intense this pain was. Like, I could think of all the different things that I've experienced in life. Like, I broke a collarbone when I was in elementary school. Big cuts, big falls, hurting the crap out of my tailbone because I was dumb and jumped off a roof, slid on the grass, and smacked my butt on concrete. I've been through some crazy pain in my life, and this was exponentially worse than all of that combined. And, it's basically enough to make a grown man cry. The pain was so bad, and I had been asking for pain medicine for hours at this point. And not only that first doctor, but my first intake nurse, absolute idiot. I told him that I was in pain and needed pain meds like right away. He kept saying he was going to put in the order for them. He didn't. Just going around the hallways, he's talking to other nurses, like extremely negligent, stupid, like shouldn't be a nurse at all. So when they finally got me on pain meds, first they tried nitroglycerin tablets. They did absolutely nothing. And they're like, oh, usually that helps. And then like, we'll have to go to more heavy stuff. So then they gave me fentanyl, and that did absolutely nothing. And the nurses were kind of shocked. They're like, oh, like, this is really, really strong pain meds. Like, this should be helping you to the point where you don't even feel pain. And I'm like, no, I feel everything, and it's getting worse, minute after minute. And all the fentanyl did was make me extremely nauseous. Like, I felt this strong urge to vomit. And then so after that, they're like, okay, well, we'll have to try morphine next. And they gave me morphine. That did nothing. Like, absolutely nothing. If anything, within the first 30 seconds of injecting me was the fentanyl and the morphine, I might have had just a couple of seconds of very, very minimal pain relief where I started to feel like, oh, maybe it's going to do something. But nope. Pretty much like right after they injected me, it was like a brief couple of seconds of minimal pain relief, and then just went back to full on insane, excruciating pain. And again, I can't explain how severe the pain was. The pain was so severe that I was actually at one point just sitting there like, God, take me now. Like, I'd rather die than keep suffering this pain. Yeah, it was super intense. And I was kind of hoping that they would, get to operate on me right away, but they didn't have a cardiac team that was going to arrive until about 9 in the morning. So I was basically in a hospital for over 7 hours, just in a bed, lying there in excruciating pain. The pain just, I'm not kidding you when I tell you that from the moment I was admitted until they actually operated on me, the pain it never stopped increasing. And, I was terrified, I thought I was going to die. And then around 9 a.m., the cardiac team arrived. I spoke to the main cardiologist, and he explains to me that they're going to have to put a catheter into one of my arteries, either in my wrist or near my groin area. Luckily, they were able to go in through my wrist, and that catheter was going to travel all the way from my wrist through an artery all the way into my heart. And they were going to remove the clot and install a stent. And, just because he has to tell me, even though it's very, very low chances, there was literally a risk of me not surviving the operation. But luckily, I came through that and I survived. And, you know, they had me pretty heavily doped up. Like I was coming in and out of like consciousness while they were operating on me. And I remember feeling like not necessarily pain, but this weird like nerve tension, I guess, from like feeling the catheter travel up through my arm, like into my heart. It was really weird. It was really weird sensation. But dude, I gotta say, like, medical technology is crazy. The machines they had, the scanners, like seeing basically live view of like my heart and the blood pumping through my arteries and stuff. It was pretty wild. But after the operation, I had talked to the cardiologist and some of the nurses, and I was talking to them, and I asked like, what would have happened if I wasn't the first patient to be treated today? And they pretty much said, like, we shouldn't say this, but you'd probably be dead right now. And I talked to so many nurses and multiple cardiologists, and they were all pretty much telling me, we don't know how you survived. Like, you should be dead. Like, they're telling me, like, so, I don't remember exactly what the acronym stands for, but, my LAD is where I had the blood clot that was completely blocking it, and that's the main artery that supplies over 50% of the blood to your body. And it's called the Widowmaker for a reason, because when people get a blood clot in that artery, they almost always die. The chances of survival, I think, were like less than 10%, but that also depends, you know, that's a case-to-case basis. It depends on the person. But, you know, it's crazy because so many nurses that I talked to, like before and after the operation during my hospital stay, the cardiologists, they were all basically like, we can't explain how you didn't die, but it seems like it's probably divine intervention and it wasn't your time yet, because based on what I told them, the chain of events that happened when I started experiencing that crazy intense pain, which is approximately, you know, not, like I said, 9 p.m. that evening, and they didn't operate on me until after 9:30ish, like somewhere between 9:30 10 a.m. So for over 12 hours, my LAD was just completely blocked from a blood clot. And a lot of times when people get a heart attack there, they die. Some die within minutes, some die within, you know, like the first hour or two. But typically, unless someone gets treated immediately, there's a very, very high mortality rate. So it's basically a miracle how I'm still alive. Like 12 plus hours of basically just getting my butt handed to me by a heart attack. And, you know, I honestly thought I was going to die. Like, I didn't know I'd survive through that night. It was a pretty traumatic and terrifying experience. Like, I can't really put into words all the emotions that I felt during that time. But, you know, I got to say, even though I have no clue what it is, there must be some reason why I'm still here. I don't know about you guys, but I was raised in a Christian family. I spent, you know, the first 21 years of my life, like religiously attending church. I played drums in my praise team. I was involved in leadership. I taught Bible study and all that stuff. But, yeah, I mean, without going too far into detail, my life, starting from childhood, which I didn't even really have a childhood. I just started adulting in freaking second grade. But basically, my whole life has been just a living example of Murphy's Law. You know, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. From the most serious things to the tiniest everyday things. Like my friends think I'm constantly making up stories, but I'm not. Like, I'd be a famous author if I could make up all the stories of all the crap that just constantly happens to me. But yeah, that being said, you know, part of me just wished I had died. Like, I'm kind of over this human life on Earth, but you know, maybe some sort of purpose will develop later in my life. Like, I'm 40, and I have no clue why I'm here, but I'm still here. But yeah, so that's what happened. Again, the reason I'm making this video is, you know, I want to tell you, if you're having any sort of chest pain, go get it checked out. Because, I mean, you could have heart issues, it could be nothing, but, you know, get that peace of mind. Yeah, I've done so much research since this has happened, and there are a lot of different people who have different symptoms. Some people don't even really feel chest pain. They feel numbness in different parts of their body, but there can be lots of signs, that can tell you that, you might be having a heart attack soon. So after talking with a cardiologist and explaining the chain of events, what they believed happened is that a little bit of the soft plaque in my LAD broke off and caused a clot. And that was probably when I started noticing, the little bits of chest pain that I would get from like walking up the stairs or getting up from the couch. And over time, that clot just kept growing and growing. And that coincides with, my chest pain getting worse and worse. And, the doctor was saying probably around 9 p.m. on the 1st of March is when that pain just never went away, when it was persistent and just kept getting worse. That was probably when, my LAD was clogged completely. And so about a week and a half after I left the hospital, I had a follow-up with my cardiologist. And what he was telling me is that while they were operating on me and, they could see what was going on, like my LAD was completely blocked. Like the clot was completely blocking it. And what he told me, the reason why I survived is he basically said, like, again, he kept saying stuff like, this is kind of a miracle. Like what happened to you isn't common. It doesn't really happen to most people. But what he said was that, you have the different main arteries in your heart, but you also have like these little pathways where blood can travel that are significantly smaller. But what he told me was that, those little pathways like expanded much larger than they should be able to expand. So they were able to move and circulate just barely enough blood to keep me alive. And he says this almost never happens. Like most people, like this isn't a thing. And, him and his team, as they were watching this, they're kind of blown away. Like, again, they kept saying the term divine intervention. Like, This isn't supposed to happen. Like all those little pathways aren't supposed to be enough to actually move enough blood and circulate enough blood for you to stay alive. But somehow they did. So again, yeah, like, I got to believe that, God kept me here for a reason. Like it's amazing the complete lack of bedside manner that I experienced while in the hospital. But so many nurses, so many doctors told me like, you should be dead right now. Like, we don't know how you survived. And what happened shouldn't have happened, but I don't know. It's absolutely wild. But yeah. Yeah. Again, just if you guys are having any sort of issues, like go get checked out. Like even if it's not heart issues, go get checked out. Make sure you're safe. And the other thing is just take better care of yourselves. Like, I don't know, like I did a deep dive into like nutrition and diet and stuff after this happened. And I've been eating a cardiac diet and I've lost in a month and a half, I think I've lost about 15 pounds. No. Yeah, 15 pounds. But, dude, all the stuff that we grew up eating, like it's so much worse now. The stuff they're putting in our food. Check the ingredient list on everything you buy. Like 90% of grocery store food, it's freaking toxic poison. Like, take care of yourself, eat better, eat healthier. And oh yeah, and the other thing I was gonna mention, one thing you need to be mindful of is freaking microplastics. Like, I just watched this documentary on it, and pretty much everything we deal with in our lives is just filling us full of microplastics, and that also by itself can contribute to a heart attack. So, there's a lot of factors that can cause a heart attack. I forgot to mention this, but the doctors, they were saying that I'm pretty healthy, and other than just slightly elevated cholesterol, they didn't really see any health markers that would tell them that, I was at risk of a heart attack. And again, going back to me saying my life is like just Murphy's Law, I have lived an extremely stressful life, you know, both in career, personal life, everything. You know, I've gone through ungodly levels of stress, and you know, stress is what can make some of the soft plaque, you know, in your arteries separate and cause that clot. And people that know me, you know a lot of times I'm really, really strung out, really stressed, have anxiety. So that's another thing to work on. Like, it's hard. Like, mental health is a serious issue as well, but like, I've been trying to work on bettering myself, the way I handle situations, the way I look at things, you know, just my basic outlook on life. And that's because if I don't, I could have another heart attack. Like, I could die. Like, I could really die. So, you know, take care of your physical health, take care of your mental health, and get checked out if you have any issues. Like, do not risk it. You know, I don't know, it may be your family, it might be your friends, but there's a reason that you need to stick around, you know. And I will never, wasn't for, you know, me growing up Christian and, you know, probably God looking out for me, I wouldn't be here anymore. So yeah, take care of yourselves, guys, and see you on the next one.